Have you ever noticed the most beautiful things often fade the fastest? The rose that stuns you with its color wilts in just a few days. The cherry blossom blooms for a moment, then rains to the ground like pink snow. Their beauty is undeniable, intense, vibrant, unforgettable, but also fleeting. In nature, it seems there's a law. The more quickly something blossoms, the more quickly it fades. The brightest flames burn out first. The most delicate petals fall the soonest. And the things that last the longest, they grow slowly, quietly. They don't call attention, they endure. In our world, driven by speed, appearances, and noise, this contrast holds a deeper lesson. Why do we chase what is quick and dazzling, while neglecting what is slow but enduring? What if life was never meant to be a constant bloom, but a rhythm between shining and sinking, between flowering and rooting? This video is a meditation on that paradox, on the beauty of the bloom and the wisdom of the evergreen. Let's take a slow walk through time, tradition, and nature to understand why the things that capture us for a moment are not always the things that hold us forever. Nature's design, the beauty-longevity trade-off. In the quiet language of nature, there's a truth that reveals itself again and again. Things that bloom quickly often burn out just as fast, and things that endure almost always take their time. Take the poppy, the hibiscus, or the cherry blossom. Each bursts open with color and brilliance. They attract attention. They intoxicate the senses. But their lives are brief, days, sometimes hours. Their petals fall almost as suddenly as they appeared. Why? Because nature prioritizes function over fantasy. When a plant blooms quickly, it's not indulging in beauty, it's racing against time. It's expending energy to reproduce, to spread its seed before the conditions change. The show is dazzling, but it comes at a cost. These plants are often shallow-rooted, fragile and dependent on ideal conditions. Their beauty is a high-risk, high-reward strategy. Now contrast that with the evergreen tree. It doesn't bloom, it doesn't flash, it doesn't try to capture your attention, but it stands. Year after year, through heat and storm, through drought and frost, it remains. Its growth is slow, almost imperceptible. Its leaves are tough, its bark thick, its roots run deep, not for beauty, but for survival. This is a trade-off we see all across the natural world. In botany, it's known as an evolutionary strategy. Some organisms are strategists, fast, prolific, short-lived. Others are K-strategists, slow-growing, long-living, more stable. But beyond biology, this speaks to a deeper principle. A philosophical paradox that brilliance is often brief and endurance is almost always quiet. It's not just plants. The mayfly lives only a single day, but it dances on the surface of water with elegance and speed. The tortoise, dull and unassuming, lives over 100 years. In every forest, the flashiest things die first. The ones that survive are those that make peace with slowness. The Japanese celebrate this through the concept of wabi-sabi, the appreciation of impermanence and imperfection. A cracked bowl, a fading leaf, the brief bloom of the sakura. These aren't signs of decay, but of life's fragile beauty. In Buddhist thought, this is anicca, impermanence. Everything born is already on its way to dissolving. The more attached we are to what is bright and brief, the more we suffer when it disappears. Nature, it turns out, isn't sentimental. It creates beauty, but never promises to keep it. So what does this mean for us? In our culture, we're trained to seek speed, quick success, viral moments, instant beauty. We want results now. We want to shine, but the rose teaches us. Brilliance can be exhausting, and the evergreen whispers, depth takes time. One blooms for applause, the other prepares for the storm, and sometimes the ones who grow the slowest, those who don't rush, who don't shout, who don't need the spotlight, become the strongest, the most rooted, the ones who endure. Ancient wisdom on impermanence. What nature teaches through petals and seasons, the great philosophical traditions have echoed for centuries. From east to west, from the Stoics to the Zen monks, wisdom begins with this simple recognition: nothing lasts, everything changes, and all beauty is born with a hidden expiry date. In Buddhism, this principle is called anicca, impermanence. It is one of the three marks of existence, along with suffering and non-self. The Buddha taught that clinging to things, people, pleasure, even our own sense of identity, leads to suffering because all things are transient. Even joy, even love, even the self we cherish, all are in motion, all will dissolve. All conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. But impermanence is not a curse. It is a doorway. When we stop resisting change, we begin to see life not as something to hold, but something to be present for. So when we see a flower bloom so quickly, so brightly, and fall just as fast, it is not a tragedy. It is a reminder to love what is here, now, to let go when it fades, and to trust that what returns will be beautiful in its own way. This too shall pass, not as a warning, but as a blessing. Even in the West, ancient wisdom confronts the illusion of permanence. The Stoics, those great philosophers of stillness and endurance, spoke often of transience. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor, wrote in his Meditations, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." This was not morbid, it was liberating. To remember death is to live fully. To remember that everything fades is to stop postponing presence. Seneca, too, advised, "Let us cherish those we love while we still have them. For the future is uncertain, and nothing remains as it is." Even Heraclitus, one of the earliest Greek philosophers, said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it is not the same river, and he is not the same man." In every culture, in every age, the wise have whispered the same truth: life is in motion. What you love will change, and that is not something to fear, but something to revere. In Taoism, this wisdom takes the form of Wu Wei, non-striving, effortless flow with the nature of things. Lao Tzu wrote, "A violent wind does not last a whole morning. A sudden rain does not last the whole day. If heaven and earth cannot make things eternal, how can man?" Taoism invites us to cooperate with impermanence rather than fight it. It sees decay not as loss, but as transformation. What fades returns in new form. The blossom falls to nourish the soil. In the Japanese Zen tradition, impermanence becomes aesthetic. They embrace the concept of mono-no-aware, the gentle sadness of things passing. Cherry blossoms are celebrated not just for their beauty, but because they fall. Their value is their briefness, like a song that ends too soon, or a memory that won't return. Because it is fleeting, it is precious. Our modern world. The world we live in today is obsessed with blooming. Fast fame, fragile lives. We're taught that success means speed. How fast you rise, how quickly you're noticed, how brightly you shine. We chase virality, instant fame, overnight transformation. We want to be the orchid, not the oak. But in that rush, we often forget. What rises quickly often falls even faster. Think of the celebrities who peak in their teens and vanish by their 20s. Startups that explode with funding and disappear in silence. Influencers who become famous in a day, only to be forgotten in a month. We see the bloom. We rarely see the burnout. In Antifragile, Nassim Nicholas Taleb writes about this phenomenon. Anything that gains too much from order becomes fragile. Anything that gains from disorder becomes antifragile. The fragile bloom depends on ideal conditions. It cannot endure hardship. But the slow, grounded thing? It adapts. It absorbs chaos. It lasts. In a digital world that rewards speed, we rarely ask, at what cost? We're sold a story. Be big, be bold, be fast. But nature has a different model. Be rooted, be quiet, be slow, because that's what endures. And this tension isn't new. Milan Kundera, in The Unbearable Lightness of Being, talks about the lightness of modern life, where nothing seems to have weight or consequence. In chasing constant newness, we lose depth. Everything becomes fleeting, replaceable, surface level. The more beautiful something is in appearance, the more quickly it's consumed. We scroll through lives the way we scroll through images, quickly, without presence. In contrast, think of the craftsman who spends years perfecting their skill, the monk who rises each day in silence, the mother who quietly shapes generations. They are not blooming for display, they are building for meaning. In Letters to a Young Poet, Rainer Maria Rilke offers a rare kind of advice. Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart. Live the questions now. That patience, that slowness is disappearing. We want answers now. Fame now. Wisdom now. But wisdom doesn't go viral. It grows. And sometimes the people who shine the brightest early in life burn through their energy, emotionally, spiritually, physically, before they've had a chance to root. We forget that the oak tree spends years as an almost invisible shoot in the soil, doing the hardest work of all, building its roots. The taller the tree, the deeper the roots must grow. Ancient proverb. So what is the lesson for us? Maybe it's not to stop blooming altogether. Beauty is not the enemy. Visibility is not evil. But we must learn to value slowness in a culture that fears it. To admire not just the bloom, but the root. To see the person who takes 10 years to grow something meaningful as just as successful as the one who becomes famous in a weekend. We don't have to resist blooming, but we should learn not to bloom before we're ready. The cost of speed is often depth, and the price of being seen too early is not being able to sustain what follows. The quiet power of the evergreen. While the world is enamored with the bloom, nature hides its greatest strength in the evergreen. The evergreen tree doesn't change colors with the seasons. It doesn't bloom in spring or fall in autumn. It stands quietly, consistently, persistently through heat, storm, frost, and drought. It is not dramatic, it is not loud, but it endures. And in that endurance, it holds a wisdom we often miss. Where the flowering plant exhausts itself in spectacle, the evergreen endures by simplicity. It conserves energy. It doesn't rush. It grows slowly, but with intention. Its strength is not in its speed or beauty, but in its structure. The cactus in the desert holds water quietly in its spines, surviving where almost nothing else can. The olive tree, gnarled and weathered, has seen empires rise and fall. Some still bear fruit after 1,000 years. These are not the stars of the garden. They are not praised for their brilliance, but they are there, always, rooted in stillness. In a world that applauds passion and fireworks, there is something sacred about the person who is simply steady. who doesn't chase noise, who doesn't perform, who lives deeply but without needing to be seen. This doesn't mean lifelessness. It means depth. It means roots. In Jungian psychology, the process of individuation, the deep integration of self, takes decades. It is not about peaking early. It's about becoming whole, layer by layer, slowly and often in solitude. Carl Jung said, "A tree that grows to heaven must send its roots to hell." The evergreen has roots in both shadow and soil. It doesn't avoid darkness, it integrates it. It lasts because it embraces every season. In Zen, there's a saying, "Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water." True wisdom is ordinary. True strength is unseen. The sage is not the flower in full bloom, but the mountain behind it. The philosopher Epictetus taught a similar idea in his Stoic discipline. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. The evergreen doesn't announce itself. It doesn't try to prove anything. Its presence is its proof. This, too, is a lesson for how we live. Not every season of life is meant to be a performance. Not every moment needs to be shared or celebrated. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is grow slowly, without validation, without urgency, without bloom, to cultivate inner stillness, to deepen your roots, to become someone who doesn't need to be seen because they are already anchored. In Meditations, Marcus Aurelius writes, "Be like the cliff against which the waves continually break, but it stands firm and tames the fury of the water around it." He was describing the evergreen spirit. In a noisy world, may we learn to value quiet growth. In a world obsessed with visibility, may we remember the wisdom of the hidden. And in a time that worships speed, may we dare to take root. The bloom may pass, but the evergreen remains. Final reflection, the bloom and the root. We began with a simple observation, that what blooms most beautifully often fades most quickly, and what lasts the longest often grows in silence, unnoticed. But this isn't a warning. It's not a call to avoid beauty. It's a deeper invitation to cherish the bloom without clinging to it, to admire the flash of color and still bow to the power of what is slow, rooted, and quiet. There's nothing wrong with blooming. There are seasons when we are meant to rise, to shine, to express. But not all of life is spring, and if we try to bloom all the time, we burn out. The rose teaches us how to open. The evergreen teaches us how to endure. We need both. In a culture of fast fame and fleeting attention, it takes courage to grow slowly, to not bloom before you're ready, to sink into the soil of stillness, knowing your strength is building where no one can see. Let this be your reminder. You don't need to rush. You don't need to be spectacular. You don't need to bloom for others to see you. You are allowed to grow in secret. You are allowed to be quiet. You are allowed to take root. Because in the end, it's not the flower that survives the winter. It's the tree. If this reflection spoke to something in you, subscribe to the channel. There's more beauty and more silence to come. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more deep content. We cover philosophies of life,